It's about the wrestlers with your host, Crazy Joe, on the Total Chaos Pecaw.
How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. This is Crazy Joe from Total Chaos Pecaw.
Thanks for having me on, man.
We like to bring in this up-and-coming superstars. So tell our listeners when you first seen wrestling.
The first time I recall seeing it, you mean?
Yes.
I think probably one of the first things I remember seeing is WrestleMania 4, I believe. I still believe my father let me rent it when I was a child from the local corner video store, and then it just kind of took off from there.
So, can you remember any of the matches on that show?
I remember pretty much all of Randy Savage's matches. Most of the other ones are kind of a blur to me, but all the Savage matches I remember pretty distinctively. He was one of my favorites as a kid, so pretty much anything he was doing, I was paying attention to.
That's pretty good. So, when did you first get into the wrestling business?
I first got in when I was, I think it was 2001. All throughout my adolescence, I kind of, was just a huge fan of it. And in my area, there wasn't too many places that I didn't even know of places that would train you to do it. I just kind of, was a fan of it, and I took martial arts for the majority of my existence at that point in time. And basically, I started backyarding like most kids at that age and that time period. And I ran in. I'm from Cincinnati area, so being from the Cincinnati area, the biggest deal going on at that period of time was Heartland Wrestling Association, because they had a developmental deal with the WWE for a while. So most of the WWE guys would be in town. So I saw Rey Mysterio, I saw Eddie Guerrero, and all these guys come through HWA, and, that was the only place that I knew of that was around. But when I decided to get into it, one of the guys I backyarded with, who was bigger than me, and he was trying to get into it too, he went to HWA, and their training camp was, of course, ran by a guy named Les Thatcher at the time, who's very instrumental in pro wrestling, and definitely knows what he's doing. And to this day, people still bring him in to do seminars and so on and so forth. But he took one look at my buddy who went to train and said, "You're not big enough, so there's no way that I can train you." And my buddy being bigger than me, I kind of realized, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to be able to train anywhere. So that kind of sucks. And I kind of just let it slip through my mind for a while and just kept backyarding and kept doing martial arts, and just kind of, thought it was just going to be a thing that was never going to happen for me. But I kept backyarding because at the time, backyard wrestling was a huge thing. And guys like M-Dog 20 and Josh Probation had made the jump from backyard to actual wrestlers. So I thought maybe at some point in time I could do that. So I was doing that. At that point in time, I was going to church all the time. I'm a spiritual person, and I met one of my buddies who was going at the same time, who I hadn't talked to in a very long time. His name was Brad, and he asked me if I was still into wrestling. I said, yeah, and he told me that he was training at a place that I'd never heard of. So I went and and trained there, and that's probably where it all began for me as a professional wrestler.
So can you tell us how you paid your dues?
Basically, I paid my dues. I would say not very different from the way most people do. I mean, most people from my period of time, I guess. When I first started wrestling, I trained for like a year and a half, and I put up rings, and I did security, and I trained as much as I possibly could. Of course, I paid for training. That was a small part of paying your dues. And once I got finished training, I started wrestling, and then I never got paid. So part of my paying dues was putting my body on the line and not getting paid for it. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years, and then I started getting paid very little, like $5 here, $5 there. And so I wrestled for the place that I started, which was IWI in Price Hill, Cincinnati. And I wrestled there for a guy named Tom Giamatti, and that's kind of where I paid a lot of my dues. But eventually, I kind of came to the realization that if I want to get anywhere, I'm going to have to go more places. I'm going to have to do more things. So at that time, HWA switched from being owned by Les Thatcher to being owned by a guy named Cody Hawk, who trained, like Dean Ambrose and Sami Callihan or Solomon Crowe and a handful of other reputable guys. And word got to me that myself and a few other guys who wrestled at these other places were kind of, HWA and Cody were kind of looking at him and be like, these guys aren't so bad. So I went and eventually transitioned and went to HWA, and then in a way I kind of started all over again, because at that point, I guess it was probably like 2005, so I started in 2001. I'd been in the business, for about 4 or 5 years roughly, and I kind of started from scratch again. I went back to, tearing down rings and loading rings and putting rings up and moving stuff, and basically back to being, a trainee again, which was fine. I didn't really care because it was a more reputable company. I was learning more. I was getting the opportunity to work with really good talent like Chad Collier and Nigel McGuinness and Matt Stryker and B.J. Whitmer and John Moxley or Dean Ambrose, however you want to say it, and just a ton of other guys that are completely and utterly overlooked by professional wrestling who were great. Dave and Jake Crist, the list goes pretty long. HWA was pretty much the place to be in my area. So paying my dues basically never stopped. I still don't think it does. I've been in the business now for 13 years, I think, 13 or 14 years. And I'm still, in a lot of ways, paying dues, because it's not something you ever really stop doing, in my opinion. I remember many times putting up rings and tearing them down by myself after having like a 30-minute match that night, and basically being in a ton of pain and still doing it. And then, driving, 3 or 4 hours from one show to get to the other show to barely get any pay and everything like that, basically just for the experience of doing it, which, that's the business. It's do it because you love it, and wouldn't ask for anything else. So, paying your dues can be done in a lot of different ways, but that's just a few ways that I've done it and still do it.
You told me you were in backyard wrestling. Did any of the guys you knew, were any of the guys like you just named, Jake Crist and all them, in the backyard?
Well, they didn't backyard with me, but yeah, they. I think pretty much all of my generation, to some extent, did do some type of backyard wrestling, because wrestling was at its height. Kind of like you could argue wrestling was at its height in the Attitude Era, and we were children of the Attitude Era, so we all wanted to do it. We all wanted to get involved. Those of us who loved wrestling and everything like that. And I know Dave and Jake and Dustin and a few other guys from the Dayton area, because I was from the Southern Ohio area. I didn't meet Dave and Jake until like 2006 or something. But yeah, I think we all kind of backyarded. In my particular little backyard, it was we built our own ring, and we did a few shows that were outside of the backyard. We wrestled at a few fairs, and we did some shows. We did one show at a Boys and Girls Club for a fundraiser for them. And, as a kid, it was fun times. It kept me out of trouble to a large extent. And, it just gave me, it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't really suggest anybody doing it now because I did get stupidly hurt. I think I got some injuries from then that have carried over into my actual career and stuff like that. But, yeah, I think a few of the guys that I backyarded with tried to continue and get into professional wrestling, like I was saying earlier, with a guy that was bigger than me, each him to two. Then when I found a place, he kind of came along with me, along with, I think, I want to say 6 more of our backyard buddies. I'm the only one that has, seriously pursued it. Everybody else kind of, fell off at some point in time or, pursued something else or got families and everything like that. And that's not, saying anything good about me and bad about them. It's just, life has changed for all of us in pretty distinctive ways. And, wrestling is one of the things that I've just always wanted to do. So I just kind of stuck it out to sometimes the chagrin of people who care about me. But
so can I ask you a question? I was just wondering because who was the promoter of your backyard wrestling?
The promoter of it was a guy named Brian was his name, and he was basically he was one of my backyard buddies' dads, and he had a son and 2 daughters, and we all did it, and they kind of made it like a family thing. So it wasn't like the backyard wrestling that you would see on the backyard wrestling VHS tapes at the time. It was different. It was a little more sports entertainment, I guess, to some extent for them because they would do a lot of the funny stuff and they would do a lot of the comedy and everything like that. I was never really that good at that. I was just let me wrestle and I'm happy. But they tried to make it friendly enough to where everybody could enjoy it. And looking back, I guess that wasn't too bad of an idea. But me, I am just a guy who likes wrestling. I just like wrestling.
So it sounds like that you were in it since you're a little kid to now.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, pretty much. I think I started doing the backyard thing when I was 16 or something. And like I said, I remember watching wrestling as far back as WrestleMania 4 and everything like that. And it's pretty much always been a part of my life. And I went to a private school, so I couldn't enter and go into school wrestling or collegiate wrestling because I went to a private school and they didn't offer that kind of thing, or I would have done it. My dad was a martial artist growing up, and he got me into martial arts movies. So I transitioned instead of being able to go and be a wrestler in a high school. I transitioned that to, okay, well, I'll be like Jean-Claude Van Damme, and I'll go to a martial arts school. So that's pretty much what I did with my time. And then once I got into the backyard thing, the martial arts stuff never really fell off. It always kind of continued with me, and I always kind of kept doing it. But wrestling kind of took a larger priority to me. Once I realized that there was a place for me to do it and a way for me to learn how to do it, then it kind of took the lead in my life to some extent.
So did you mix your your martial arts into the wrestling?
Yeah, I think it didn't for a long time. I think it didn't really develop until, like I said, I got into it. I got into the business at 2001 or something. And the place I wrestled for at the time was, again, IWI. When I first made my debut, they were like, okay, here's what we want you to do for a gimmick. We want you to be a collegiate wrestler. And they were very well that they knew very well that I was, I had a martial arts background. I didn't know nothing about collegiate wrestling at all, except for what I saw Kurt Angle do, and I just couldn't do some of that stuff because I didn't understand it, But they put me in a singlet, and they said, "We want you to be a collegiate wrestler," and I was pretty much terrible at it. They gave me a pretty good gimmick now that I look back at it. My name was Charles, call me Chaz Farnsworth, and like now I feel like I could look back and be like, oh, I could actually do something with that now. But at that time, I was young and didn't really know what I was doing. So, I didn't transition it right. And trying to be a collegiate wrestler at that time it didn't flow. I didn't actually start embracing my martial arts in wrestling until about 2005 or 6 when I met Dave Crist and Jake Crist. When I got brought into HWA, or I started training at HWA, Cody Hawk put me with a guy named Alan Wassilishin, and they teamed us up, and we were the Mavericks. And we were a young team, and Dave and Jay were the Irish Airborne at that time, and they were a very young team as well. And we started working with each other. And they would see me do stuff, I guess, before the shows, and then they knew what I was capable of. I just never did it on actual shows. And then one day we were doing a match, and I think Dave kind of used what I would consider tough love to me. Is he kind of went out of his way, and in a lot of ways it was kind of bold of him. Is he pushed me to a point where I felt like I was in trouble. So he kind of brought out that in me, like he kind of forced me to defend myself. And then, then I started using my martial arts training to my advantage, and I kind of have since that moment. Like it's just it took me years to adapt and let my martial arts training become a part of, who I am in the ring. But once it did, it kind of just flowed easily at that point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I forgot to ask this question, and I'd like to go back to it. You said you worked at 2 different schools. Can you tell our listeners what one was easy and what one was hard?
I think they were both like kind of hard and easy in their own ways, I guess. Well, I guess I shouldn't say easy, because none of them was really easy. The first one I went to, it wasn't quite as advanced as HWA. The first one was IWI. So I went there, and they taught me basically the basics. They taught me the basics of, okay, this is how you do this, this is how you do this, and this is how you do this. And it was a good example it was a good foundation. They gave me a solid foundation, I guess is the best way to say it. It wasn't easy by any means at all. I think the hardest thing for me to do at that point in time is I could bump like a crazy man. Mainly, I think, because of my martial arts background and stuff. So I knew how to take a fall. I knew how to, protect myself above all things. So you could pretty much do anything to me as far as like throwing me around and everything, with the exception of, just straight dropping me on my head and trying to kill me. I could pretty much find a way to land relatively safely on it. But the hardest thing for me to do in that first school was actually run the ropes. Like, it took me months to figure out how to run ropes and not make it hurt. Because, a lot of people don't really recognize, they see people hit them all the time, and it's not a big deal. But you got to understand that those guys have most likely developed such a callus on their back to some extent that it doesn't hurt them now. But for the first 2 months of my training, I would come home every day from training with bruises all over my back from the welts from hitting the ropes, because it was so hard for me to get, and they were so difficult for me to do. But once I got to HWA, it was like a whole different ballgame. At the other school, they kind of beat me up a little bit. A little bit of a rough and tumble type stuff. Just kind of like, this is wrestling. This is what you're going to have to deal with. But when I got to HWA and I started training with Cody Hawk, it was a whole different beast. Because, I guess in a lot of ways, because, WWE guys have been through there, and they had dealt a little bit with, you know, the training that they go through and everything like that. So it was a whole lot different. It was like two totally different worlds, whereas the one was just, you know, basics, and then when I went to HWA, it was like advanced. It was, okay, now we're going to do drills until you puke. Now we're going to do, you're going to have to do calisthenics until you can't move. And you're going to get in the ring with these guys, and they're basically going to stretch you because you don't know what you're doing so well, and they do. They've been in the business for years and everything like that. Every bit of it was an awesome learning experience, and they never took liberties. It was just so different. They were both really, really hard, but they were also so different that it's almost, you can't even really compare them.
So, out of the three, like you said you're in martial arts, and you're in the other two schools. Did you ever want to quit or give up?
Actually, yeah. I ran into one of the guys from my first school the other day, and he reminded me that there were quite a few times in that first school that I did want to quit, not because it was hard or anything, or I thought it was too difficult, because that wasn't it. I mean, I've always been pretty decent at developing physical things. Like I can once you show me things quite enough times, I get it. Physical things have never been a problem for me, but, you know, mental is a whole different story. But it seemed as in that school that our trainer, he rode me pretty hard. Like, not that he didn't ride everybody else hard, but there seemed to be times where he would ride me extra hard. And I still don't know why to this day. He doesn't train people anymore. Unfortunately, I haven't even got to speak to him in years. But he seemed to ride me extra hard. And apparently there were a few times where, I remember one specific time, actually. This is the only one I remember. We were doing drills and taking moves back and forth and everything like that. And he was in the ring working with somebody, and he said something to the person he was working with, but the guy beside me didn't hear him. So the guy beside me touched me on the shoulder, and he says, "Hey, what did he say?" And then I turned to tell him what the instructor said. Well, I guess the instructor heard me telling this guy beside me who wasn't listening what he said, and he got super heated. And he, like, stopped what he was doing, turned around, yelled at me for, like, 15 minutes, just berating me, asking me if I wanted to be the trainer and all this, that, and the other, and basically, you know, putting me in my place. And then he told me to get out of his ring and go and sit there for the rest of the class. And that was one of the days where it was like, you know, okay, well, this sucks, and I'm not sure I want to come back here. And, you know, granted, I mean, it was kind of stupid. I mean, he didn't know why. He didn't even give me an opportunity to explain myself. But, you know, it is what it is, and luckily I didn't quit. And, you know, I just kind of swallowed my pride and just took it, and was like, okay, well, that sucked. But now I'll know never ever to talk. If somebody misses something, they're like, yes, they just missed something. So yeah, I guess there was a few times. But once I got past my training, I don't think I've ever really had any moments where I've wanted to be like, okay, I really want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore, because wrestling has given me a ton. I mean, it hasn't given me a ton of money. It hasn't given me, you know, a lot of things in my house, and it hasn't helped me be able to pay all my bills all the time. But it's given me a lot more. You know, it's given me a ton of good people that I've met. It's given me my wife. It's given me, you know, a lot of things that I wouldn't trade for anything. So since that moment, I don't think it's safe to say that I haven't had too many things that made me be like, all right, I want to quit wrestling.
So, do you still see your trainers once in a while? Like, you bump into them?
No, not really, actually. I haven't seen my original trainer from IWI. His name was Tom Giamatti, in at least 5 years or something. And then my other trainer, Cody Hawk, I haven't seen him in probably like 2 years, no, maybe about a year and a half or something. So no, I unfortunately don't get to see him all that often, but you know, their memory remains with me. So
let's say I was a new student and you're the trainer.
Yeah.
What would you want me to do first?
Well, I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, the political answer would probably be go to school and get an education. That way you have something to fall back on. And then I guess another answer I could give you would be go to the gym, you know, get in shape, whatever. I think most of all, I would tell you to take it seriously. You know, that would be the number one thing I would tell you, because a lot of people, you know, in my personal opinion, a lot of people, you know, take wrestling as, you know, not as serious as it is, but in reality, it's very serious. It's a job. It's a career. It's something you take seriously. It's not something, you know, you're just like, you know, it's awesome. It's cool, whatever. I mean, to some people, I mean, they could not live. A lot of people try to live off this business. So, you know, I would just say respect it. You know, like it's serious. People's, you know, livelihoods are this business. And if you respect it, it'll respect you. I think that's probably the main thing I would tell you is respect it. Don't treat it like a joke, because it's not a joke.
So let's say I didn't quit. I kept on coming back for more and more. So what would you think?
I'm sorry, ask again.
Let's say I didn't quit, and I just kept on coming back more and more for the training.
Well, if you come back more and more, then I'm just going to keep training you. I mean, if you don't take it seriously, then I'm not going to take you seriously, and I'm not going to let you continue to train with me. But, you know, if you keep on working hard and you keep on trying to progress and you're getting better as opposed to just staying in one spot, then I'm not going to turn you away. I mean, that's common knowledge to me. I mean, I think there are some people who just, you know, don't belong in wrestling, just like I don't belong in, you know, I'm not a scientist. I never would. I've never passed a science class in my life. So I'm not going to go try to be a scientist.
So let's say, how would you tell me to respect the boys and girls, the referee, the sound guys, and everybody in the wrestling voices? How would you teach me that to respect them guys?
Well, I've actually put a lot of thought into this, because at some point in time I do kind of expect to train some people. And I learned a lot about respect and discipline and everything from my training in martial arts. So I think I would go that route with it. I would expect people to have a code of conduct. I would expect them to follow a certain set of rules. And if they didn't, then I wouldn't allow them to continue to train at my school, and I would not back them up for anything. I mean, respect is a thing in most points that is, you know, given and so on and so forth. But where am I trying to go with this? I think a good way to teach somebody how to respect is basically make them tag along with you. If you're a wrestler, then there's a lot of things you go through. There's a lot of things that you deal with. You deal with putting miles on your car. You deal with going days without really sleeping. You deal with, like, for a lot of guys, they go to a show on Friday. They do their show. They get in their car. They immediately drive to another show on Saturday. If they're lucky enough, they'll get in their car again. They'll drive to another show on Sunday. Most likely, since wrestling, there isn't as many jobs as there was, like back in the, you know, 80s or 90s or anything like that, they most likely have a regular job they have to go do too. So then they go from the show on Sunday, hopefully if they have one, and then they drive home to go to sleep for a few hours to get up to go to work on Monday. And, you know, like, and we do it because we love the business. We do it because we respect the business. And I think if you had to kind of go and see what a person has to go through, how much they have to miss, how much they, like, I have 2 adorable little nieces. I have a couple of adorable little nephews and everything like that. And I rarely get to see them because I'm on the road pretty much all the time. I actually, when I had my knee surgery just a couple of months ago, I got to go to one of their birthday parties for the first time. Like they're one of them's like 7, the other one's like 4, and that was the first time I got to go to either one of their birthday parties, and it was insane. So I mean, and knowing that there are guys out there who never get to see their family, they never get to be there for big events and everything like that. It kind of makes you look at it a little bit different. Like they do it because they love it. They do it because it's their job. And if you can't respect it and you can't respect what these guys go through for the business they love, then you probably shouldn't be involved in it.
So can you tell our listeners your first indie professional match?
Yeah. Like I said, my name was Chaz, or Charles, call me Chaz Farnsworth III. I was doing a collegiate wrestler gimmick. I had a singlet that didn't fit me because I didn't have enough time to actually go and get a singlet. And I wrestled my then trainer, Tom Giamani, under a hood. And his hood gimmick was Ike Jones. And it was in Price Hill, Cincinnati, Ohio area. And it was about 9 minutes maybe. And it was terrible. And I used to have it somewhere, but yeah, it was pretty awful. I wasn't very happy about it because I mean, I thought I was one of the more ready guys at the time, but looking back, I wasn't ready at all, really. So it was an experience, to say the very least, but that's really all I could say about it. Just I wasn't ready for it, you know. I wasn't ready to be put out there yet. I didn't understand what psychology really was, anything of that nature. So it ended with a last ride that I got beat with, and that's pretty much it. I think my biggest move in the match was a drop kick, and I think I hit it 3 times because I couldn't think of anything else to do. Like, oh, okay, drop kick, all right. Okay, drop kick, all right. What? Okay, another drop kick. Yeah, and that was all I had.
Hey, yeah, at least I give you credit because I couldn't pull that off. You know what I mean?
Well,
So like I always tell people who ever come on, and I've been doing this lately, this is not the Total Chaos Pecaw show. This is your show this week. The Aaron Williams show. So, and I would love to have you back on maybe Wednesday to finish the second half interview.
I will definitely make sure that I can do that. I usually wrestle in Dayton on Wednesday nights. Depends on what time, but I'm sure we can talk about that, and maybe we can make that happen.
Yeah, because I like to, or even if you want to do it sometime in the middle of the week, we can do it anytime in the middle of the week. We try to
Good deal.
But can I? Because I want to know all the guys you wrestled, and I like to save that for like a part 2 of the storyline.
Okay.
You know what I
Good
mean?
deal.
So before you leave, tell our listeners where have you traveled to?
Well, I've traveled, kind of pretty much like throughout the East Coast, and I've wrestled in Tennessee and Ohio and New Jersey and Kentucky and Indiana, West Virginia. A lot of places. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but a lot of places like that. I'm looking into branching out even more. I mean, I'm always trying to branch out and always trying to do more. But unfortunately, once I did Best of the Best this past year in New Jersey for CZW, I was expecting to do a lot more and kind of use that as a springboard, if you will, to do a lot more in that general area and, get out to the East Coast on a more regular basis. But unfortunately, I had to have knee surgery soon after that, and I'm just now getting back into the swing of things again and getting back to moving again a little bit after 3 months of surgery, or 3 months after surgery, which for an ACL reconstruction, it's really not too bad, I don't think. So, I've traveled and done a lot of stuff, most of which, I mean, as a wrestler, you kind of don't really realize sometimes where you're at. I think the other day, or not that long ago, as a matter of fact, I talked earlier before the interview about a match against me and Ron Mathis against Team IOU that was in, I want to say Chicago or something. And when Mathis took the booking for us, he actually thought it was Indiana, and it ended up being Illinois. So that was quite a different route, but that's not the first time that kind of thing has happened. You take a booking, and you're like, okay, sweet, this is where it's at, and then you actually look at it, and you're like, oh, that's not where it's at all. Then you just kind of go, and you do it, and you're gone before you even realize where you're at, really. Life of a pro wrestler. I've wrestled in Michigan. I've wrestled in Chicago. I've wrestled in Wisconsin. I've wrestled a lot of different places, and hopefully many, many more. Because although this knee has put a hindrance on me, it's only the beginning, and it's just now getting things rolling again. So, yeah.
Can I ask you a question? And I hope I'm not being disrespectful or anything. I was wondering how you got your injury, your knee injury.
Oh no, it's not disrespectful at all. Actually, I was wrestling a match, and like it's kind of odd because I was wrestling a match in back in I want to say October last year, and I went to do a moonsault off the top rope, and the guy countered it by basically rolling over and doing a push-up, and my knee came down across his back. And I knew I hurt it real bad at that point in time. I knew it was bad. But I finished the match, and I went home, and I put some ice on it, and the swelling went down, and then I just kept wrestling. And I was just like, screw it, whatever. It was swollen up. I've had knee issues before, no big deal. So I just kept wrestling. And then the more times I would wrestle, the more times it would swell up. And, as time went on and everything like that, I just kind of kept doing my thing. At one point in time, I knew it was getting really, really bad, but I got invited to do Best of the Best. So it's like, okay, I think I'm gonna go do Best of the Best because it's Best of the Best. It's a pretty elite tournament, so I want to go do this. But just to be safe, I better go get my knee checked out before I go because I want to be at my best. And I got no problem admitting that from October to April, I was far from my best. I was getting by, and I was able to perform and able to do my thing, but I wasn't the athlete I know I am. So I went and I got my knee checked out, and basically, they were like, okay, well, it sounds like maybe you just need your knee scoped or something like that. Let's do an MRI and then kind of take a good look at it. And basically, my doctor then brought me back, and he was like, okay, well, your ACL is in really, really bad shape, and if you do not stop, it's gonna tear, and it's gonna be really bad. And I said, okay, well, can you give me a nice brace or something to kind of keep it, good? And he was like, well, I don't really think. He was like, you really need to get it fixed. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I got this thing I got to do. It's like, okay, well, I'll give you a brace. And he gave me my brace, and I went and I did best of the best. Have you seen that match by chance?
Yes, I did. I love
Well,
seeing best of the best, and it's like everybody comes out of there, and they always
yeah.
go up to the next stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, which is why I had to do it. But I don't know if you remember, there was a spot in the match where I did a helo on Tommy End. And when I did this helo, if you see it, my leg crashes on the guardrail. And the moment that happened, I felt something go wrong. But I was able to finish the match because the adrenaline was high and everything like that, and it was fine. But I got back to the back, and I started untaping my knee, and it was basically the size of like a volleyball. It was huge. And I put my brace back on, and I went to the doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, you gotta get your knee fixed like right now." I was like, "Well, that sucks."
That's what I was just gonna say, because you probably had the crowd in your hand that night.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I mean, it's definitely going to be a moment I'll cherish for a long time, because it's pretty hard to win over that CZW crowd, and I felt like in a lot of ways I did, and I knew that there's I know there's a lot more that I have to offer than what they even saw that night. I wasn't at my best, and I'm still recovering from this knee surgery. I mean, they told me initially when they did it, they were like, "You're going to be out for 6 months, easy." Well, an opportunity came for me to wrestle in a place I'd never wrestled before at I want to say 2 months and a week. And they're like, "Can you do it?" So I was like, "Yeah." So I went and did it, and then I just kind of haven't stopped since then. So yeah, knee injuries be danged. So once I'm 100% again, it's gonna be all gravy, if you will.
So, can you tell our listeners about that match? You took you're saying you had a match with, we talked about it on air or off air, with you and Ron Mathis.
Oh yeah. Me and Mathis, we went up to Proving Ground Pro in Chicago and wrestled in their tag team title tournament against Team IOU. And somebody just posted the match on Facebook and I think even on Twitter. And it was a good experience. It was cool. It's actually a very unique day. Me and Mathis met up at a horror convention that day, and did a little horror conventioning, and then got on the road and drove out to Chicago. And as we were driving, the car just randomly started smoking for no reason, like 3 times. And we kind of wondered whether we were even going to make it. But, we were just like, it's probably fine. It just kept going. And we eventually did get there. Unfortunately, I was having a bad leg day. So Mathis was having to carry the weight of everything. But the match was fun. Team IOU, I like those guys. They're unique and different. And they're usually pretty entertaining to watch. And Mathis is a hidden gem in indie wrestling, if you ask me. So it was good times. Proving Ground Pro was fun too. I mean, they treated us with a lot of respect, and they were very cool to us and very inviting. So hopefully, that's another place that I hope that we can go back to and tear it up and kill the town and all that good stuff.
2 more matches, and then I'll let you go for now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you tell our listeners who was all on that show, who was in that tournament? Sorry.
Oh, the best or the one?
No, the tournament you and Ron was in, the tag team tournament.
You know what's bad is I can't even recall. I know. Let's see, it was me and Mathis were in it, and Team IOU were in it. A team by the name of Alpha Breed, which is Remy Wilkins. And oh gosh, I can't remember the other gentleman's name right now because the only thing I could think of is his shoot name. Oh, that's terrible. But they're a good team too. They're a good solid team. Trevor Court, that's his name, and they're a good team. And I can't remember any of the other guys because unfortunately Mathis had to get back. So basically, we kind of like walked in the door, changed, wrestled, walked back, changed, got back on the road again. And so, like I said earlier, Al, sometimes you don't even realize where you're at because, it's you literally there and then you're gone before you know what happened. And I think we were in that part of Chicago that day for a total of about 35 minutes, I think.
So you're in and out and gone. You got in, did your match.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You probably didn't even get time to get a drink or anything.
No, we didn't. We didn't. It was a unique night. It was crazy.
So I like the last question. I would like you to tell our listeners, because I've been checking it out and it's been pretty good, Rockstar Pro.
Okay. Rockstar Pro is a company out of Dayton, Ohio. They run weekly shows. They have weekly shows that they put up on the internet, Amped. They had it before Global Force Wrestling decided to name their show Amped. Rockstar Pro has been around since I want to say 2012, I think. So they got a lot of really solid talent there. Dave and Jake Crist are there. Ron Mathis, who I already spoke about, is there. Matt Taylor. And then they bring in a lot of other guys like Shane Strickland was there this past Friday. Matt Tremont was there, who just won the CZW heavyweight title this past Saturday. Congratulations to him. I mean, there's a ton of guys that are coming through there. David Starr was there. Him and Dave Crist had a fantastic match. They did their this past Friday at the iPay-per-view, We Are Rockstar, which you could go to DIYwrestling.com and check that out if you wanted to at the iPay-per-view. And, they're a company that's, trying to constantly get better and constantly do new things and constantly, put themselves out there. So if you haven't gotten any visuals of Rockstar Pro Wrestling, I would suggest you do that. There's also a young man there by the name of Nate Wings, who is incredible to watch. He's small, but he can literally do anything in a wrestling ring, and it's pretty crazy to watch him sometimes. There's just a lot of unknown talent that comes out of that southern Ohio-ish area, the Dayton area, that people should know about. If you're a wrestling fan, I truly believe that you owe it to yourself to know about Rockstar Pro Wrestling, because there's a lot of guys in there that unfortunately haven't had the opportunity to travel to your PWGs or your CZWs or your Ring of Honors or, your places of that nature. Check out Rockstar Pro Wrestling, and I'm sure you will enjoy it.
So
of course, I'm there too. So.
Yeah, so we can't miss Aaron. We always got to see you. Because hey, I would love to see you in a CZW ring again.
Hey man, I'm hoping to get there. There's been some talks about some stuff, but nothing is set in concrete yet. But if you want to see me back at CZW, then tweet them. Tell them that you want the Baddest Man Alive back, and maybe that'll speed the process up a little bit.
So you're telling before we leave here, you were telling our audience that we're just talking about how the wrestlers go from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we just noticed that Matt Tremont just did a Friday night show. Dave Crist, Jake Crist probably was on there, right?
Jake actually hasn't wrestled in the Rockstar Arena in a while. He's kind of taken a break from the local scene for a little bit. to focus on his family and stuff. So he was kind of hanging out, but he wasn't on the show. But Dave was, and like I said, him and David Starr destroyed the place, and it was fantastic to watch. And I wrestled Eric Ryan, and Matt Tremont had a Panes of Glass match. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Well, just think, them guys, all them guys we just talked about, they probably had to go travel down to Jersey.
Oh yeah, every one of them.
And so, what do you think? How long is it from Ohio to Jersey?
I think it's about 10 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
So they had to have...
So yeah, they basically, most likely, the couple of times I've went up to CZW, I've basically, because usually there's a Rockstar Pro show on a Friday, and then CZW is the next day. So all the guys from CZW basically come and they do Rockstar. They may sleep somewhere for about 2 hours, and then they wake up and then they start the drive to Jersey to get there in time to maybe hopefully get some food and get there before the show starts. So yeah, it's pretty.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, brother.
I was gonna say one thing before I keep saying get one more, but I'm enjoying this conversation. Man,
that's cool, man.
and people who don't know CZW, if the crowd loves you, they'll embrace you. If they don't love you, they'll boo you out of the joint.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very ECW-esque, from the '90s times and everything. Which is why when at Best the Best, when I kind of won them over, I was pretty happy with myself, and I was pretty happy and very excited about the possibility of maybe coming back the very next month and everything like that. But unfortunately, situations like my knee happened, and things put on hold for a minute. But hopefully that will not be a thing that continues. Hopefully I'll get back out there and tear it up in the combat zone.
Hey, and you never know. In the near future, you might be on pay-per-view.
I mean, yeah, man. That was pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yes, and
CZW on pay-per-view, that's pretty awesome.
Yes, and I'm going to give you a little secret. I've been a CZW fan from KG Death 3.
Really?
And so it's like I've seen all the crazy stuff. I've seen it all. So it's like, oh. And now it's going to be on pay-per-view, or it's like, oh, wow. Because I was at every show, but I could save that for a later time. But,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to hold you up. So
oh, no, man, you're cool.
And I'd like to thank you for coming on today.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening to me. And hopefully we can do this again in the near future.
Hey, maybe we could do it this week sometime, so we could.
Hopefully.
All right. And that was Aaron Williams. And thank you for coming on the show tonight or afternoon.
No problem, man. Thank you again for having me. I had a great time.
All right. See you later, my friend.
I'll see you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Aaron Williams, a next up-and-coming star. And I hope to have his story on who he wrestled in the next chapter of his story. And that was Total Chaos Pecaw. And I hope you all enjoyed the interview. I did. Have a good night, people. Bye-bye.